Welcome to the 2009 Tour of Missouri, a race that will cover 600 miles spread out over 7 stages, starting from St. Louis and going all the way to finish in Kansas City. Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Schoen, and I'm joined here by Frankie Andreu. And before we get to the action, this race has really gone on from strength to strength since it started in 2007 with a victory going to George Hincapie. But Frankie, I think over the last couple of years, this race really has ranked itself up, and they've really changed the profile of the race. And this year, I think we're going to see a slightly different Tour of Missouri.
I believe we'll see a very different Tour of Missouri. Of course, they've changed the race almost upside down on itself. We're starting in St. Louis and finishing in Kansas City. And of course, they moved the time trial from stage 3 to stage 5. Also, there's 7 Pro Tour teams, whereas last year there was only 3 Pro Tour teams. So there is a great number of riders that are very capable of winning this race that are here this year.
Yes, a lot of riders. It's hard to pick out a number of the riders who are going to come up with the overall victory. But I have to say, over this last 12 months, one rider who really made a breakthrough season in 2008 was a man by the name of Christian Vande Velde. Not only did he finish in 4th place in the Tour de France, but he went on to win the 2008 Tour of Missouri.
It meant a lot because I really hadn't won a race. I had a lot of success in 2008 from everywhere from here in the Tour of California through the Giro, the Tour de France. But for myself, being up on the podium all by myself, and it was the first time for the year, and I really just put everything together that I had done in 2008, and it was my last race, and it was great. The great way to end it. It was icing on the cake.
2008 certainly was a breakthrough year for Christian Vande Velde after his 4th place finish at the Tour de France. I have to believe that the icing on the cake was winning the 2008 Tour of Missouri. But Frankie, I always believe that for an American rider, it's very special not only to be able to race on American soil, racing at home in front of the home crowd, but also to get a victory here too.
No, it's definitely for Christian Vande Velde to win in 2008 of the Tour of Missouri. A big win. It's because he won here in the U.S. I mean, this is the 2nd largest race we have in the U.S. For the domestic riders, it's extremely important. This is a chance for them to show off, prove their strengths to the Pro Tour teams that come over to here. This could give them a chance to get a contract to go over to Europe. And, of course, for any of the European-based pros that are American, when they come back here to race, this is a chance to show why they are on the Pro Tour teams, why they raced the Tour de France, and to beat up on some of their fellow compatriots that they grew up racing with.
Well, we talk about Christian Vande Velde being one of the big boys here as at the race with his ability in the individual time trial. But one man who's just won the American National Championship for a 5th time and the 4th time in a row, Dave Zabriskie, is a hot favourite to win this bike race overall. But they're not the only individual time trialists in this race. And I have to say, Frankie, there's an awful lot more names who've got a chance of winning this bike race overall.
No, definitely. I mean, George Hincapie won in 2007, but he might be preoccupied with leading out Mark Cavendish. But we have to look at Mick Rogers. He was 2nd in the 2008 Tour of Missouri. He did very well winning the Australian National Time Trial Championships early in the season. He was part of the team time trial winning Giro team, but he hasn't had that race win for himself. He's going to be very motivated to win here instead of placing 2nd like he did last year. And of course, Levi Leipheimer coming off the broken wrist at the Tour de France. Levi is going to be very motivated. He knows how to train to race. He's 3-time winner of the Amgen Tour of California. He can train to get ready for that race in February, so he's going to be training hard in order to win this race in Missouri, and the time trial really does fit into his strengths.
Yes, but the time trial comes towards the end of the week, and in the early part of the week I'm expecting to see the sprinters come out and show us why they're regarded as some of the fastest men in the world. And of course the man we expect to win is probably going to be Mark Cavendish, because he's won 23 times so far this year with his great Columbia HTC team. But when you talk about the Tour of Missouri this year, there are an awful lot of sprinters, and Mark Cavendish is probably not the only man trying to get his wheel across the line in 1st place.
No, definitely Mark Cavendish is the favorite. All eyes are going to be on him, but you have to look at Cervelo testing with Thor Hushoff, who took the green jersey at the Tour de France, and Henrik Hosler. And if you look on the domestic side, there's Kevin Lacombe, and also from Colavita Sutter Home, Sebastian Hayedo, who is wicked fast, and Team Saxo Bank, JJ Hayedo, the brothers. Everybody is going to take a mad dash to the line, especially on the 1st stage of the Tour of Missouri.
Well, it's going to suit the home riders, definitely, because it's going to be 10 laps of a 7.5-mile circuit, 75 miles in all, the race around the heart of St. Louis here, and it's going to be, I think, a very exciting sprint to the line. Right in the very heart of St. Louis here, we can see in the shadow of the Gateway Arch, which was built in 1965. All of the fans here waiting for the start proper of stage 1, 75 miles, 10 laps of a 7.5-mile circuit here, and all the big favorites lining up right on the start line. Just over on the right-hand side there, you can see the Stars and Stripes, the brand new crowned champion of the United States, George Hincapie.
Of course, George Hincapie, the winner in 2007. Very excited to take the start. And it's David Zabriskie, Levi Leipheimer, Christian Vande Velde. And there is Busch Stadium, the home of the St. Louis Cardinals, built in 2006. A beautiful stadium, and the race is underway. Think about 136 riders as they get ready to take off on their 10 laps.
Well, I can expect a very fast and furious start here because all of the men in this race would like to try and get a small breakaway forward, and we have already got a break of 3 riders. These 3 riders have managed to get off the front of the main field. Number 27, Thomas Vickers, he's the rider from Team Astana in this breakaway. 31, Chris Anker Sorensen, a very dangerous man to have in a breakaway. He's from Team Saxo Bank. And Moses Adalpe, number 107 from Team Type 1. He's a Mexican rider. His brother, formerly the Mexican road racing champion. They're building themselves up a fairly serious advantage here of Frankie, around about 40 to 45 seconds.
Yeah, right now the 3 riders really are working well together. Moises Adalpe realizing the danger of letting an Astana rider and a Saxo rider go up the road, so he had bridged across. Of course, he was a member of the 2008 Olympic team, this rider from Mexico, combining now with the Lithuanian rider from Astana and the Danish rider, Chris Anker Sorensen. These 3 riders right now with their heads down trying to build that gap because they want to stay as far in front of those sprinter teams as possible.
Well, the front end of the main field will be controlled by the teams of the sprinters, and I would expect to see Team Cervelo, Team Columbia, and of course Liquigas on the front end of the main field because those 3 teams have some very fast finishers. Of course, for Cervelo, it's Big Thor Hushoff, the God of Thunder, the winner this year at the Tour de France of the green jersey competition for the 2nd time for Norway. Colombia's got Mark Cavendish, regarded by many as the fastest man in the world, and he's the man who won 6 stages at the Tour de France, including the final stage on the Champs-Élysées. And don't forget, the man who won last time the race was in Missouri here and St. Louis was, of course, Francesco Chicchi. But on that occasion, Frankie, that was the final stage of the race.
Yes, it's a little bit different, and Francesco Chicchi will be one who's trying to win that sprint. And obviously, with Saxo Bank, they have J.J. Hayedo, but they're not putting all their eggs into that one basket because Chris Anker Sorensen right now is driving it on the front. Turned professional about 3 years ago. His first Grand Tour he did was the Vuelta de España. The following year, he did the Giro, and of course, this year, he's a big factor in the Tour de France.
Well, just looking at Thomas Vickers on the front there, his nickname, by the way, is Thomas the Tank Engine because he's such a big, strong worker. But he wasn't, in fact, in his own right, champion of the world at the under-23 discipline of the sport. That was way back in 2002. He's been the national time trial champion of Lithuania on 2 occasions, and he's been the national road race champion on 2 occasions too. He's the rider at the back there wearing number 7. He's an extremely strong man, but frankly, in latter years, he's really been very much a team domestique, hasn't he, since he came across to Team Discovery Channel and, of course, now Team Astana.
Well, he's a strong rider in his own right, but when you come across to a team that has the riders of Levi Leipheimer and Brockovich and others, then you end up becoming a helper or a worker. But right now, he has a chance, an opportunity for himself. He's combined with these other 2 riders. They're still building up a gap of about 45 seconds. They're staying in front of the chase group. We still haven't seen a sign of the peloton to actually find out who is chasing in the back.
Well, Race Radio is telling me that the working being done on the front end of the main field is, in fact, Team Cervelo, and, of course, ably assisted by Team Columbia HCT, and that's not a surprise to me at all because, of course, big Mark Cavendish is going to be a very difficult man to beat. The reason those teams are doing the pacemaking back on the front end of the main field is to make sure that this leading group of 3 riders doesn't get too big of an advantage. They're going to try and keep it, I would expect, Frankie, pegged at around about the 1 minute 15 mark because they know then down towards the end they can pull this race all back together.
Yeah, as long as they can keep it right around 1 minute or a little bit less, then they know they have them in their reach. They can jump across and they'll be able to shut this break down and go for that field sprint. But if they start closing down this gap too soon, we're going to see a lot of counterattacks come from the group. As soon as it gets to around 20 seconds, the riders in the main peloton are going to feel the itch and they're going to take off. But Chris Anker Sorensen, look at that face. He is determined to try to keep this break to stay away.
Well, at the moment, they're hanging on to around about the 1 minute mark over the front end of the main field, and I think that's the most important thing. These 3 riders now are trying to steal a smarch over the front end of the bunch because they now believe that they have got the possibility of victory and outwitting the sprinters coming down to these final few kilometers of what is a very exciting Stage 1. Well, welcome back now. We're looking now at the final kilometers. The main field really is starting to bore down ahead of these three leaders. We had a maximum advantage for the three at 1 minute and 15 seconds. We're looking at Thomas Vijkers of Team Astana, Chris Anker Sorensen here of Team Saxo Bank, and just sitting in the middle there is the rider from Mexico, Moise Adalpe. But I have to say, Frankie, now the main field really are starting to take this race extremely seriously. The white jersey on the front there is a rider from Team Cervelo Test Team, but the team doing the bulk of the pacemaking here, of course, are the men in yellow, black and white. Team Columbia HTC. Just caught a quick glimpse there of Big George Hincapie.
Yeah, there's Big George Hincapie with his red, white, and blue stars and stripes jersey. Of course, just winning the U.S. Professional National Road Championships, and any of the easy riding of the parade laps that they were doing earlier on are definitely over with, because Columbia HTC now has been on the front with the help of Cervelo Test Team. Now, Cervelo has Hostler and Hushoff, who are their two sprinters. Columbia has Cavendish, and right there behind there you see Planet Energy, which Kevin Lacombe would be their sprinter, and of course one of the other domestic sprinters in here, Colavita Sutter Home, which has Sebastian Hayedo. Saxo Bank has a rider in the front in Chris Anker Sorensen, so because of that, they're able to sit in right now, but their sprinter is JJ Hayedo. But look at the Columbia train with the Cervelo rider leading it. The speed is starting to pick up. It's starting to get into one long line.
Well, it looks very much as if we've only got one little move trying to get across the front end of the main field here, because as you can see, everybody now is trying to pull this race back together. This is the last survivor here. Moses Adalpe, in fact, has left his two companions along the route, but I think this is really pretty much prolonging the agony, Frankie, because there are the two men who were in that breakaway of three riders. It's now the race situation back down to a race situation where we have one lone leader, Moses Adalpe, off the front end of the main field by maybe 10 seconds or so. I think very shortly we'll see even the young Mexican rider back in the fold.
Yeah, I believe the Mexican rider turned professional in 2004 from Team Type 1, and there the riders are coming right around the course. He's pouring some water on his head. He's going to try to get some fresh legs, perhaps jump back into this main peloton. But for Columbia HTC, this is now starting to get down to some serious work, because they are determined to try to get to that finish. And again, at the finish, the winner gets a Buell 1125R Superbike motorcycle. So that is a big, big prize at the finish for whoever can come across that finish line first.
American-made motorcycle by the company Harley-Davidson, but it certainly isn't a cruiser. It is an extremely fast motorbike, which turns out a speed of 140 kilometers an hour. I think one or two of these riders at the back end of the main pack right now would like one of those motorbikes just to stay in contact with the peloton. The front end of the main field, Frank, is being completely controlled now by Columbia, and I think that's the job that they have to do. Having a little look back here now, you can see just a quick chance to see the man who won this race last year, Christian van der Velde. Not looking very comfortable there, but he does realize at a stage like this, he's got to move up to the front end of the main field and try and keep himself out of danger.
He definitely has to move up, and you can see they're going so fast in the front, and when they come around those corners, you get that whiplash effect, and the riders are just on the rivet, on the tip of their saddles, trying to keep up with the speed. Right now, Team Columbia fully in control. You can see a battle already starting to happen right behind Mark Cavendish as everybody's trying to get on the rider that's wearing the green glasses.
Well, Italian national champion on the front here. This is Marco Pinotti. He's done this all year. He's led Mark Cavendish to 24 stage victories in races around the world. Michael Barry coming across there from Canada, but it's a great big organized train on the front end of the main field for Team Columbia. They know exactly how to do this. At 1 kilometer to go, it's still Columbia all over the front end of the main field, but now there's another team taking over, Frankie. This, of course, is Team Cervelo Test Team.
Cervelo Test Team on the front. There's George Hincapie just waiting. He's trying to bide his time and be patient before he has to take up. Looking over his shoulder, determining when to take off. Cervelo now starting to take off. Tor Hushoff in a good position, but look at the scramble for position right behind them.
Well, Hushoff in third place, second place into this final corner. This is the corner at around about 400 meters to go. You can see the blue jersey there of George Hincapie. He's looking over his shoulder. Come on, Mark, where are you? You've got to be on my wheel at the moment, but he's lost George Hincapie. It's the Team Cervelo Test Team lead out now. In second position there, you can see the massive Mick Tor Hushoff. In third position there is Mark Cavendish. A little bit of a crash in the back, but that's not going to affect the outcome of this race here at all. Acceleration there starting to come from Tor Hushoff up on the inside, but I did notice the acceleration coming right down the middle by Mark Cavendish. We can't see the riders coming up to the line, but I can see that is Mark Cavendish. The Manx missile scores once again here at the Tour of Missouri. Stage number 1 at the end of this as well, Frankie. That is going to be a yellow jersey for this young man who gets his first win on the United States Tour of Missouri this year.
Mark Cavendish, untouchable, unbeatable, unstoppable. What a sprint coming off, and there it is. Mark Cavendish, finishing just in front of Juan Jose Haida. Tor Hushovd, who had the perfect lead up, but he did not have the legs at the end, was in third. And there's our GC right there. Cavendish taking that leader's jersey with Moses Aldelpe in second.
Well, that was a phenomenal performance, and as you can see, there is Mark Cavendish with the yellow jersey. The end, the first stage of the Tour of Missouri this year. What an exciting climax that was, with Mark Cavendish coming out of the pack. A little bit of a crash on the final 200 metres, but certainly there was no disputing who was the first man across the line, the man we're now starting to regard as the fastest man in the world on two wheels. I'm joined by Mark Cavendish, and Mark, with about 1.5 kilometres to go, a little bit of excitement there as Team Cervelo's test team seemed to swamp out your guys who up until that moment had been completely in control.
You know, yeah, we took control from the beginning, so we used up a lot of guys. We only had 3 guys at the finish, but, you know, Cervelo tried to take advantage of that. But, you know, my guys have done it over and over again. They know the drill, and so they're able to keep relatively relaxed, keep the cool there, and do what they do best, which is deliver me to the best position. And, you know, it was perfect for me. There was a bit of a hairy moment. There was a pothole in the road. George has hit the pothole. I think he's hit his knee on his handlebar, actually. So, you know, he carried on through the pain for the last K for me, and you know, Tor jumped, and I was able to get on Tor and come around relatively easily. So, you know, it was another day out, another sprint day, and you show the guys the commitment they have, and we've come out with success, so we're happy.
Obviously, your team does have a big commitment towards bringing you to the finish line. How do you balance the, sometimes you guys complain about everybody looking for Columbia HTC to do all the work, and yet here you end up doing most of the work to be able to bring it down to a field sprint, but you are the #1 sprinter. So are you fine with that as long as you win, and do you only get upset if you lose?
Well, you know, it's we know it's going to happen like that. People are going to look at us, but, you know, unless you take something on, you're not going to succeed. You know, there's so many teams that they look at all the other teams rather than what they're doing themselves, and they're not the ones that get success, you know. And we're the ones that get success. We take it on, and that's why we win 70 to 80 races a year. And you know, it's not going to pay out. It's going to work out every time, but you know, I'm someone I like to win. My team's some team that likes to win, and for sure we're going to get frustrated. But you know, if we lose in that way, then we're gonna you know, build on that, and we're going to win the next time, I hope so.
Paul told me that the number of wins that you have for this year. Do you know the number of wins that you have for this year?
I think this is my 22nd individual, and I've won 2 team time trials. So I think, yeah, I keep count. I think I'm over 50. I'm about 55 career victories. Which
actually, I disagree with you, Mark, there, because I've got 56 victories down for you, and I didn't count the team time trials because I counted 2 criterium wins as well. Because as far as I'm concerned, when you're a professional bike rider, a win's a win.
I've actually won 5 criteriums this year, actually.
Good, put him in his place. He needs it.
And about 3 last year as well. So, yeah.
So you've won an awful lot of races. But when you look at this race in the overall of the race, it's very difficult for a man like yourself, who is a great sprinter, to come up with the overall victory, because right in the middle of this race, we've got the individual time trial. But I think Columbia HTC have brought some pretty strong guys this year with the hope of trying to win this bike race overall.
Absolutely. You know, we've got George Hincapie, who's won this race before, and Michael Rogers, 3-time world time trial champion. And then Marco Pinotti, who's a great time trial, Italian national time trial champion, and the course suits all those guys here. It's going to be fun to see, you know, and I think the team's going to be committed, no matter who it is, to come up with a win. We've got a lot of cards to play, both on GC and stage wins, and you know, we showed that last year. We won 4 stages last year, and you know, and we were up there on GC, so we'll try and do the same again, and hopefully we can come up trumps. So.
How do you see this race turning out towards the end? Because we've got a great number of individual time trials in the event this year, and of course Dave Zabriskie has just won the American National Time Trial Championship for the 4th time in a row. He'll be a tough man to beat, and of course Christian Vandervelde coming back after a very bad injury at the Tour of Italy and finishing 8th in the Tour de France. Do you think there'll be a situation in the race this year where we might see a breakaway go clear, and maybe somebody like George Hincapie try and slip into that move?
Possibly, you know. It's quite a tough parkour this year. I think it's tougher than it was last year, and that could prove for some attack and racing. You know, there's some very, very strong teams. There's some very motivated teams. It's getting to the end of the season now, and there's some teams without many victories, so they'll be looking to build on their stats for the season, and so I think it's going to make for a very competitive race. But you know, we'll do our best to be part of that, and you know, we like to win, we like success, and so hopefully, yeah, like I said, we can be part of it.
Speaking of building on the stats for the season, you've been going all year long. I mean, you put a lot of emphasis on starting off well, especially a huge win with Milan-San Remo. Then you went to the Giro, and you've won races in between, the Tour de France. After this, you mentioned that you're going to the Worlds. How is it that you're able to just some riders really focus specifically on certain parts of the season, and you've been able to win pretty much consistently throughout the whole year, and how taxing is that?
I'm with the philosophy that the more races you win, the more races you ride, the more races you can possibly win. And I'm in the best environment. My team has actually got they're really, really concerned not just about how I race in the year, but about my whole career. So I'm not going to put too much on it. I'm in a good place that I have a lot of guys who look after me. I'm always looked after in the races, which makes it a lot easier. But at the end of the day, I just love to ride my bike. If I'm not racing, I'm going to be at home training anyway. At least at a race, I get a massage, I get to eat well, and I get to see all the fans. So I like to be at races, and obviously the success on top of that is an added bonus. So.
Well, there's no doubt today about who won the first stage, but I have to say the win of the overall Tour of Missouri still remains in a lot of doubt.